Yo, what's poppin', guys? Sizzle here, and in this video, I'm going to be taking a look at Mastercomfig, which is a mod that pretty much everybody who's ever played Team Fortress 2 uses. It's used by casual players, it's used by competitive players, it's used by everybody, everywhere, right? YouTubers, Twitch streamers, whatever. Some people might not talk about it often or at all in their videos, but pretty much everybody who plays Team Fortress 2 uses this mod. Because what Mastercomfig does is it optimizes all your TF2 settings to get you the most FPS possible while still having the game look nice, right? There's like no real big differences. They do have multiple like different quality settings, so you can see like this one's got outlines and ragdolls and all that, and this has that all disabled. But there's basically multiple different quality presets that you can install and just drag right into your, you just hit the app button here. And you can see, right, we go from like ultra to high, medium, medium, low, low. And these are all optimized for different systems, right? Depending on how good your computer is, you want to try out all the different ones and see which one works best for you. The thing is, it's not very well documented exactly how many more FPS or how good these things can be for your computer. I haven't really seen anyone making any videos kind of talking about how efficient they can be and kind of showing off the different FPS they get with every single one. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. I'm going to be going from stock TF2 without Mastercomfig installed to installing Mastercomfig and kind of seeing how every different preset, how many more FPS we get or FPS we lose, depending on if we're going up or down in quality, and just kind of see how efficient it is at maximizing your FPS. So first things first, I have to reset my TF2 settings. The way you do that is right-click, Properties, turn off the Steam Cloud. These are the launch options I always use right here, which is no border for borderless windowed, because I have two monitors. I really like that. This is the width and height of my monitors, just 1080p. Then these tell Steam I'm not using controller. This skips a little intro video. And then these are like small optimizations. I forgot exactly what they do, but I know these are just nice to have and make your game run a little bit smoother. Either way, what I'm going to do from here is type -autoexec, and then I'm going to go to installed files, browse, and you can see it's open up my Team Fortress 2 files. We're going to go to TF, then custom, select everything that's in here. I already deleted this like a minute ago, but I'm going to delete it again. Delete everything in CFG, go to custom. If there's anything in here, delete it as well. And all we're going to do from here is generally just boot the game, and this will reset all your options, and then you want to delete this and reboot the game to kind of save your options going forward. What I'm also going to do in this first time boot, though, is change my DXLevel, which is the DirectX level. It's kind of like the rendering thing TF2 uses. There's basically two real options when it comes to this. We have DXLevel, the way you type it in is just DXLevel with a little dash in front of it, then the level. We have 81, which is for low-end computers. This disables skins. This disables like killstreak sheens. It disables a few different things that look really nice, but it makes the game run a lot smoother, even on modern hardware, but especially on lower-end hardware. So if you're really struggling to run the game, or you don't really care about skins or whatever, or nicer-looking flame particles and pyro and all that, just type this in to get better frames and all that. The default TF2 uses is DXLevel 90, which works fine most of the time. But there's also DXLevel 95, which is 9.5, which just makes TF2 run a little bit smoother, a little bit better, generally on more modern-end systems, which is pretty much every system at this point, because TF2 is old as hell. So I'm going to do this as well, because both of these, after you run them once, you actually close the game and then delete them. So I'm going to go do that real quick. I'm going to go hit play. Alright, so now the game's booted. It's loud as hell for me. And I didn't have it set to record. Whoops. But yeah, loud as hell for me, so I'm going to close this out, go to options, go to the audio tab, turn this way down, pretty lower than normal, and I'm going to turn off the music volume as well, because I generally don't like music in the main menus. Other options I like to change, I turn on mouse filter to play demo night better. This, I don't know exactly what this does. It says right there what it supposedly does on a technical level, but all I know is turning that on makes demo night actually like playable. Mouse sensitivity, turn that to my usual sensitivity. In here, I don't like using scroll wheel to change weapons, so I'm going to unbind that, but that's a personal preference. There's no need to really do that. I guess I'll just leave that as is for now. What I'm also going to do is go to Advanced, where it says Fast Weapon Switch, Enable Developer Console. I'm turning both of these on, because Fast Weapon Switch everyone should have on. I don't care what your preferences are or whatever, or if you plan on using Mastercomfig after this video, but Fast Weapon Switch makes it so you don't have to press the weapon twice to get a swap to it, which is how every modern game works, and it's how TF2 should work by default, but it doesn't for some reason. And then Enable Developer Console lets you put in some nice console commands, and it's just generally useful to have access to. But some people might not need this if you only ever plan playing casual. It's not super vital, but I would still have it on. It's just nice to have. And you only open it with this button right here, which is the default to toggle the developer console, which we'll show off in a second when we go hop into a game. But yeah, you can see these are the default video settings it picked for me. This is what it picked over here. I'm turning off motion blur as well, because motion blur looks like shit. Notice how it says software DirectX level 9.0. It'll say that regardless of what you're on, except if you go down, I think. I think when you go to 8.1 or 81, I think it actually shows the proper thing there. But you can see we got like color correction, most things on high, right? Generally just all of that. Crosshair, I like having a crosshair on my screen, so I'm going to use crosshair 7. It's my crosshair choice, and I'm going to make it the nice turquoise, like bluish color that I like to use. It's around this size. It's not exactly the size I normally use, but it's close enough. And yeah, there we go. With all that kind of said and done, we've now configured stock TF2 in a way that I kind of like it. I'm going to do a little bit of further configuration real quick. So I'm going to just go to, like, I don't know, a quick thing of offline practice here in Viaduct. And I'm going to change a few other in-game settings that I like to change just for convenience, and I think most people should change and know how to change. I'll just show them off in this video. Alright, you can see we've loaded into like a random game or whatever. I'm going to turn on 3D characters in the corner. I like being able to see my little guy down there with all his unusual hats and all that. But you can see the default settings, I can like barely see parts of the screen, right? If I'm looking right here, as we are right now, I can't see past that blue barrel, just looking forward like this. So what we're going to do is we're going to open that TF2 console, and we're going to type in FOV desired, change that from 75 to 90. And now you can see I can see past that blue barrel with no cost anything else. The game looks the same otherwise. Something else I like to do is view model FOV 80. This puts out the weapon a little bit further. Looks nicer on most things, in my opinion. 80 is about where you can have it before you start seeing stuff like the soldier's arm, right? So if I do view model FOV 90, for example, that's weird. What, 100? There you go. You can see soldier's left arm starting to peek out. So generally, most of the time, 80 is kind of just the sweet spot that I've found. Or some people even do 78 because they have problems with specific things. Because another useful command that a lot of people like to use is TF, use min view models, and change that to 1. You can see his arm appears, which is why people use view model FOV 78, I think. No? Is it 76? 75? I guess 72 is what we're going to go with for now. You can see this makes all the weapons like way smaller, but also way more off screen. I'm debating whether or not I like this at the moment, and to keep it as close to looking as stock as possible, I'll just not use that, and I'll use view model FOV 80, because, I don't know, it's just a nice way of doing things. But yeah, now the game is up and running. We've changed all the commands I kind of care to change, and now we'll just go test stuff. Which on the top left, you can see we have a little FPS counter there. That's the Steam overlay FPS counter I just have enabled. But in order to test things properly, I'm going to have to reboot the game and disable those launch options that I set earlier. Alright, so we're going to right-click Properties, and where we have DXLevel 95 and AutoExec, we're just going to delete them, because now they're set in stone. That's all perfect. And I'm going to go boot the game again and explain how I'm going to be testing the different FPS. Alright, we're back into things, and the test we're going to be doing is pretty simple. We're going to go to Find a Game, going to go to Training, Offline Practice, and then King of the Hill and Sawmill. This map's got a lot of visual diversity and a lot of kind of different nice areas to show things off, right? Like it has water, for example. That's going to be a big thing in this. We'll be able to see like moving things like saws. We have like weather and rain particles on here. It's just a really good map to demo what changes between the different presets. And yeah, I'm going to go hop into it with TF2's default settings, at least with the default settings it provided me, so we can get like a baseline FPS to see how our FPS either improve or get worse as we go through all the different Mastercomfig presets. Alright, so we're all loaded in. You can see, got our character select screen and all that. For this tutorial, I'm going to be using the soldier here with my 2 unusuals that I have equipped, the Allfather. I'll even pull out my usual shotgun so we can test like how particle effects affect things. I can just pull this out at random. And otherwise I'll be using the stock like escape plan and original loadout. But yeah, you can see walking out of spawn with like nothing around other than the character outlines, right? When we're not looking at them, we get like 100 FPS. Looking at them, we get like 60, 50 to 70. Looking out this way, you can see some nice rain. You can see the clouds and all that. Right, if I pull this thing out, you can see our FPS don't even really drop here. We're in like the several hundreds. We're getting 190, almost 200 FPS looking out into the nothingness. We turn back around to where people could be. Our FPS drop pretty considerably, and this is what you'll be playing with when there's nobody around. When there are people around, we'll see things drop maybe even like a little further. You can see this is with people on screen. We got somewhere between 50 and 70 FPS, maybe 50 to 80. Because we did hit 50 a few times. To be completely fair. But yeah, I'm pulling out like the unusual shotgun with people around here. Nothing's really changing with it out, actually. I really thought that this would have an impact. I always heard that this effect specifically had a really big impact on performance, but with the FPS open, this isn't even really changing my FPS that I'm getting. So overall, we're getting a pretty solid FPS, right? With people around, somewhere between 60 to 80 generally. And that's just with TF2's default settings, which on my computer are relatively high. Like, the game looks pretty beautiful. We got rain, we got that beautiful thing over there. Looking at the water is nice and like high quality. When we're in the water and we look up, we can see through it very perfectly. And like we got a nice little water particle effect there. And overall, it just kind of makes sense. It just works, right? Nothing super crazy going on here. We're dead and we're in spectate. Our FPS are up a little bit, but they're about the same, right? When there's actually stuff going on, somewhere between 60 to 80. I feel like that makes sense. And yeah, that's stock TF2. It's about what we get going on there. And let's go head off to the first set of Mastercomfig settings. So just to show off how to install Mastercomfig, and by the way, you can also configure. So for example, what a lot of people do on lower end systems is because when you're on lower settings, the water can be really fucked and looking through it can be rough. Some people who run with the low preset, they go down here, and this is where you can further configure it, and they go over to the water section, they turn water to high, because that way you can see through the water more clearly and it looks a lot nicer. There's also some nice like visuals to go with it, as to how it might look in-game. It's not perfect, but it gives you a pretty good idea, right? So very low, for example, you can see it's like shiny. On low, it's not like a lot of waves. On high, we've got a lot more waves and stuff. But yeah, we have a lot of stuff we can change there, but every preset has its own defaults for this type of stuff, and I'm not going to be touching them at all. Do know that changing little stuff in the customizations here, which is quite a lot of stuff, right? Like re-enabling enabling pyrovision, enabling motion blur, character quality, the general details like bullet holes and stuff, model decals, which is actually bullet holes, map decals, just like the little textures on maps, gibs, which is like the way people blow up and explode into bits like that. Then there's silly gibs, which makes them like gears instead of body parts, which I don't really like. Ragdolls is a big one. You can have them on high, you can have them on medium, so they like fade away eventually. Hidden, so like they just don't even happen. Or off, which is the same thing. I don't really know why they're separate things, but either way, we got the 3D skybox, jiggle bones, which is like what makes like the arms and stuff jiggle when you move around like that. Kill streak chain and stuff, right? So a lot of stuff to configure here, and some network stuff as well. FPS cap. Just a lot of things like that that it will configure for you in a very perfect way. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Ultra one to start. So we're just going to use Ultra. I'm not going to change anything in here. I'm using all the defaults in this. And as for add-ons, I like null canceling movement and flat mouse. This makes your mouse inputs more consistent. and this makes it easier to move around. I don't really understand fully what it does, or like the full scope of how to use it, but basically it stops you from accidentally stopping moving, which is nice. I could also disable Pyroland, which is a further optimization, because most people don't ever use Pyroland, but I'm going to keep it enabled. And then all these other things, no tutorial is a really nice one, I'm going to do that as well. No soundscapes, removing map noise, no footsteps, and disable Pyroland. These actually all improve your FPS a tiny bit more, each one of them, but I'm not going to do them. And then this right here, low memory. I'm not going to use that, obviously, because what it says right there is if you have 2 GB or lower of RAM, so if you're on a really old PC that can barely run anything, you want to you want to actually install this, you want to get this, and you want to also be on DXLevel 81, as we described earlier. But in my case, I have way more than 2 GB of RAM, so I'm not going to touch this, but do know that this is an option if you're on a very low-end system. And all I'm going to do from here is hit download, Mastercomfig, Ultra Preset, add-ons, and customizations. Just hit download. It'll get you like a nice little zip file. When we open that up, it'll just be the TF folder, and then we have CFG, overrides, modules, and then custom, we'll have Mastercomfig Ultra Preset, and then we'll have all the different add-ons we have. I'm going to keep these 3 add-ons in every single experiment we do. The file I'll be changing is this Ultra Preset one as I change things. But to go install that, it's pretty simple. And you go back to Steam, Team Fortress, Properties, Installed Files, Browse. And you can see that opens up the Team Fortress folder. And if you remember from here, in the Mastercomfig zip, we get the TF folder. We just drag it right into here, and it'll drag in perfectly. If now we go around in here, we can check TF, custom, you can see it's all in there. It's CFG, overrides, modules is right there. So that's all there, that's all perfect, that's all running. And yeah, now we have Mastercomfig Ultra installed, and I'll see you guys in-game where I go test the FPS on it. Something I almost forgot to do while we're loading in here is going back onto Steam real quick. If it lets me pull it up, which it's not, because it's loading into the map right now, as you can see. But going back to Steam real quick, right-click, Properties, and turn back on Cloud Saves. Almost forgot to say to do that. Make sure you do that as well. I almost forgot. That just keeps all your settings all the same, which is nice. Alright, anyway, we're back into TF2. We got our nice welcome stream, all that, all the same. Let's see, we can load all the characters real quick like that. And here we are. Right, everything is about the same. Ultra actually probably uses higher visual presets than what I was using before by default. You can see looking out this way. Right, we're not going to the full like 190 or whatever, but we still got the rain. We got like 140 FPS. Looking back this way toward the action, we're now going probably 50 to 70 rather than 60 to 80. We do have higher quality, just everything though, like the waterfall here and the rocks and the water and all that should be higher. You could even see raindrops on the water. Shit's crazy. But yeah, we should have higher visual quality here on the rockets, on the models, on everything. Should all be just visually nicer. You'd see when we're fighting people here, it's about 60-80 yet again. But we just have better network settings. So like if we were on an actual TF2 server, our ping would be slightly better than it is normally. Our FPS are going to be slightly either identical or higher. You can see people exploding to a million bits like that. You can see the water out here looks really nice. If I go into the water, it should work the same as it did before, where if I go in the water and I look out of it, we can see out of it very clearly, very easily. All right. That is always important to point out, because that will change as time goes on here. But yeah, nothing super special going on here, nothing super fancy happening. This is just Team Fortress, kind of as you know it, and it's some very high quality models. I think I accidentally saved the thing where I disabled ragdolls though, which is actually a slight FPS boost, funnily enough, because I'm not seeing my medic and scout ragdolls and stuff unless they blow up like that, which is my bad. It's a misconfiguration on my part. I forgot to reset it in the add-ons page, which I'll make sure to do when I test the other presets. But point being, Ultra's about the same, and it looks nice. It looks very nice. It looks the best that we've seen. Yeah, with that being said, let's go off to the next preset, which is going to be high. You can also see the mouth moving there in the animation there. Okay, so to make it very clear, I accidentally changed things in this little config setting when I was testing ragdolls. To fix that, very simple, just hit reset all modules and it'll change it. So for example, if I change the lighting to very low, it should look like that, and I hit reset all modules, you can see it's now back to very high. Forgot to click that button when testing Ultra, so that'll be the one thing that won't really be in line with the rest of the test, but high should be about the same. Right, looking at Ultra, looking at high, enables all graphical features without making them extremely high quality. But yeah, that's where we're going to be running next, and I'll see you guys in game. Alright, we're back in game now. Let's go hop back on blue team. All the same weapons, all the same stuff. For some reason, our hand is now back on screen, so I guess I'll just do model. Why did our V model FOV change? Okay, I guess it's because I turned back on cloud saves. So there we go, we should be back in business as we were before. And yeah, you can see, looking out this way with high settings, our FPS from what, 140, 150. Right, pretty good stuff, pretty solid stuff looking out that way. This will change every time, like looking back out, it was 160 for a second, so don't pay too much attention to that. Point being though, when you're not looking at stuff, the FPS will be a bit higher than normal. You can see we still got all the rain, we still got the waterfall, we still have the raindrops on the water. And then still when we're fighting people, our FPS is somewhere between, I don't know, 60 to 90, give or take. Yeah, turning on the Steam Cloud means I did accidentally just turn back on a few of the other settings I use, like I have a kill sound, which is now just going to be TF2's default kill sound, but I normally have a custom one in there. Oh, I can't kill this fucking engineer bot for the life of me. Yeah, you can see our ragdolls are all there, everything else is all there. Game's looking good, game's looking solid. And it's running smoothly. It's running, we should have about the same visuals that we had with stock TF2. The difference is now my FPS are about 10 higher. Instead of getting 60 to 80 FPS, I feel like I'm getting, I don't know, 70 to 90. Don't know how true that is, but just whenever I look up there, the FPS seems about 10 higher, give or take. And there was no downside to it. Going in the water works all the same, looks beautiful, works well. And we just left our medic bot behind, whoops. But yeah, overall just works, just makes sense, just functions. Nothing super fancy going on here. Not really much more to discuss. Our FPS are simply improving. The visuals look pretty identical, at least to me. Let me know if you guys notice any difference, because I actually really don't notice the difference between ultra and high settings here. I mean, from the description on the Mastercomfig website, there shouldn't even be much of one. You should basically just get higher FPS with like a minor visual downgrade, which is more than great. But yeah, with that being said, let's head off to the next preset. You can also see mouth animations and all that are still working like normal. Alright, here we are on medium high. We should start noticing a few things disappearing, but most things should be the same. And see, we're looking around. Our FPS seem about the same in spawn, to be honest. There's nothing super crazy going on there. Looking out into the sky, the rain is gone, and our FPS are way up because of it. We are now hitting 200 FPS. We weren't doing that before. We're now at a pretty consistent 200, looking out into the nothingness there. Looking back toward the action, we're now maybe like another 10 FPS higher. I don't know, instead of 70 to 90, which is what we were getting before, I feel like we're now doing maybe 80 to 100. Obviously there's going to be dips where it hits 70, but on the whole, it's pretty default behavior. Our FPS are doing that pretty fine. We're actually kind of getting a lot higher in FPS a lot of the time as well. But that could just be because there's less things on stream, because like here it's just the engineer. Looking back this way, it's just the heavy. Alright, nothing super crazy going on when it comes to that type of stuff. But you can see ragdolls are now gone. I made sure to reset all modules this time. On medium high, ragdolls are off by default, so if that's something you like, in my case it's something I love in Team Fortress 2, I'm going to make sure to re-enable that in the modules if this would be the thing I end up using, which I might, because I really don't like the little rain particles. They're really obnoxious in my opinion. I feel like this map looks about the same without them. Going into the water though, you can see we can still look out of it all the same, but everything's all pretty functional there. Although it's starting to bug out a little bit more. Like when I'm in a more neutral place. We can almost not see out of it. But to be fair, there's like 5 maps in Team Fortress 2 that have water at all. But yeah, you can just, in all of these examples, you can just look on the top left at any point, kind of see how the FPS is doing comparatively. This isn't a super scientific test, it's just a live demonstration of every single module. You know, the visual differences they have, or at least it's an attempt to see the visual differences. And yeah, that being said, we're going to go off to medium. Oh yeah. Alright, we're back in the game, now with the medium preset. You notice our original is looking a little bit different already, and our shotgun is as well. Right, the skin quality is pretty non-existent now. It's still there, but it's way lower. Looking out this way though, with no rain and all that. Oh, whoops, need to fall off like that. Looking out this way, we're not even really hitting the same. We're at about 200 again. Nothing super crazy going on there. You can start seeing the textures on stuff like this is looking a little bit worse, a little bit lower quality. Looking out at the water this way. Water's looking nice. Nothing super crazy. It's a bit more murky than normal. In the heat of the battle, though, our FPS has now jumped where the lowest we're really seeing is 90. I lied. We're back to 75 at times. But generally, our FPS seem much higher. This was with like everyone on the map on screen at once. We were seeing 75, and we haven't seen anything lower than that. Fighting like a one-on-one, we're at like 120. Nothing super crazy going on here in terms of higher FPS, but the FPS are higher, and the models are slightly lower quality, which for a lot of people is charming. I actually kind of like when the models are slightly lower quality like this. And this is like my only weapon skin, and I use it for the unusual effect, so I'm okay with it looking like shit as well. I don't really care. But I'm pretty happy to get some, like a few more FPS, like 5 to 10 FPS, just disabling stuff like that. I'm not so happy losing ragdolls and things like that, which is something that has just happened from preset to preset, but, you know, we're doing decent. Anyway, where's the enemies? I want to see if they blow up into bits, because I don't know if that's changed yet. He's just disintegrated, but that just happens sometimes with the rocket launchers. So I gotta try and see. Yeah, no, they're not blown up into like little meaty bits anymore. The gibs are gone. You'd see there's just nothing. It was disintegrated. Looking at the water though, looking at's about the same, but we have that same kind of visual bug that starts happening where sometimes like this, like the map is just gone. And this wasn't really happening before in higher presets, so that's worth considering. That's why a lot of people, when they're on lower presets, have the water turned up, because only the highest quality water really works more consistently. That's definitely worth noting. But yeah, that's medium. This is what medium looks like. This is like the minor differences. You can see her character model. You can look at the hands and stuff. They're starting to look a little bit worse, but they still look like the soldier's hands. This medic still looks like the medic. But the qualities are a little bit lower on the character models as well. Especially when you look at Soldier's hand, it's looking a little bit worse than before. But yeah, I'll go catch you guys in medium low. Alright, we're back in it. Let's see what's going on. You can see our model quality is even lower. The skin is even... It actually almost looks nicer, honestly, because it's like blending into like a single color instead of being more visually nice. Yeah, the weapons look pretty good, pretty solid now. I think if we look at the original, we can see through the other side of it. We can see the back of it ever. Looking out this way, we're easily climbing over 200 FPS. Like, this is one of the biggest jumps we've seen so far. We're getting 300 FPS looking out this way. Pulling out the shotgun and all that. Drops our FPS a lot more than it did before. It used to not even drop our FPS. Now it's noticeably dropping it by like 50 FPS or something. Yeah, looking back toward people, instead of dropping down to like 80 like before, we're now at like 130, 140 even. This is just, it's nuts. But you can see the texture quality is way down on everything, even on the enemy and teammate character models. They're down quite a bit. Obviously, ragdolls and all that have been gone for quite a while now, which is unfortunate. But that's the defaults of the preset, so I'm going to work with them. But yeah. You can see when fighting people, that was 4 people on screen right there, and we had 130 FPS instead of like 70 to 80. So we've now, like, from this preset to the other one, we've like doubled our FPS, at least on my system. Like I said, this can differ from system to system. For some people, going from high to medium high could have the same performance improvement. But that's the point. Like you make your game look a bit worse. It definitely looks a bit worse. The qualities are down a bit, but this is still very recognizable as the map. The water's been getting more and more murky, and more glitchy. But other than that, I mean, our FPS are through the roof. The game still very much looks like TF2. Like, if I didn't like have a side-by-side to the stuff we just had 5 seconds ago, I really wouldn't notice the difference outside of when we get Ubered like that. But honestly, it almost looks cooler when you're just glowing blue like this instead of like a flashing blue. Just being a nice solid blue color like that is pretty dope. But yeah, pretty notable improvements, like I just mentioned. I have no clue what this guy's shooting at. Then we go into the water here and we try to look out of it. Pretty similar stuff as before, a little bit less of the water effect than before, and that bug where everything is invisible is still happening, like, consistently, which obviously isn't great. Which is, like I said, that's why people turn up water quality whenever they use any config, because it's important to recognize that. It is very important to recognize that water is bugging TF2 the further down you go. But yeah, game's looking a bit lower quality, but still like Team Fortress. This is still TF2 at the end of the day. Looking at the model quality's gone way down though. The hands actually look pretty similar, but the rest of the model, like you look at like the coat and stuff, it looks way lower quality than it did before. And yeah, that's medium. This is sorry, medium low. Guess we already did medium. I didn't even realize. But yeah, with medium low out of the way, we're now off to the final kind of normal preset, which is going to be low. Very low is unnecessary for most people, but we'll kind of see what that's about when we get there. I'll see you guys when we go to the low config. Alright, we're back into things, and you can see already on the character select, the models are way down. Look at look at soldiers' arms, bro. What do they do to them? But yeah, the textures have now gone so low that we can see the individual squares of every single texture just like perfectly. And usual effects are still kind of pumping along well, which is interesting. But yeah, looking out this way, clearing 300 FPS easily like before. Not even really that much more FPS than the other stuff. If we look at like our model and we do the conga, it actually looks pretty similar. Not too much worse. Although if I remember correctly, this is the one, yeah, if you try to look at soldiers' eyes, this is the config where you can start seeing through people's eyes because their eyes just go through to the back of their head. It just completely disables the eyes on the character models. But yeah, looking at the rocks and the water and all that, looks a little bit lower quality than before, but honestly, not too much worse. It looks about the same there. But yeah, across the board, way lower quality. Like I said, we can see every individual square of every pixel. Like they're not even they're not even trying to hide it. This is just low, very low quality TF2. You see people on these low presets, this is what you see. These squares everywhere. But our FPS is slightly improved. Honestly, from medium low to low, the improvement has not been that great for me. Our biggest jump was definitely somewhere in the mediums, I think just like medium normal. But this like has notable downsides. This is the first one where I feel like, outside of obviously the missing ragdolls, this has really had the most drastic visual difference of any of the presets we've had so far. I do also want to mention, this one tried to get me to disable the ambient noise, so like the saw noises and stuff, and like the bird chirp and all that. And it tried to get me to disable pyrovision as defaults. Like I didn't select those add-ons, but it tried selecting them for me, because that's how they just select them in the low preset. But I'm not disabling that stuff. I feel like hearing the sound of the maps is nice, and pyrovision I might want to use someday, so I don't want to just like completely disable that. But those are added FPS boosts if you want them. I might do a test at the end there where I actually get all those add-ons, but I first want to test out very low, not just low. You can see we're easily into the several hundreds with the FPS, and this is with DXLevel 95. Like I haven't changed the DXLevel or anything. The DXLevel change can really give you quite a significant boost as well. But yeah, our skin's looking about the same as well. Nothing super crazy going on there. Debatably looks even better than before. But yeah, you can see through everyone's eyes. Like look at our medic. Look at his eyes, bro. You can see straight through the back of his skull. Actually, straight through him, you can see the skybox through his eyes. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of creepy, in my opinion. That's something I really have not liked. Like, look at this demonic-ass scout. Demon Fortress right here. This shit is crazy. But it is an FPS boost at the end of the day, and you can enable higher quality character models. You don't need the character models to be very low. Like I said, you can manually configure each of these to enable things that you personally like. Like for me, I like ragdolls. I will be turning them on always. Yeah, like that's just like a must for me. And I also like when characters have eyes, so I wouldn't go to very low. I would probably put the characters to low at the lowest. You can see the same type of bug happens where everything gets disabled, and then when we're under the water, that's about the same as before, but it's like a little bit worse. But that bug is a lot more prevalent the lower down we go with water quality. But yeah, overall FPS is drastically improved yet again. Well, not drastically, but it's improved yet again. Our FPS went even higher. And the higher up in FPS, the lower the difference generally tends to be. Like, going from, like, 100 FPS to 110 FPS is, like, nothing, but going from 50 to 60 FPS is night and day. I feel like if you're running TF2 under 60 FPS, or any game for that matter under 60 FPS, you should really try to make it run at 60 FPS. It's just kind of... That's the point where I feel like people really... Like, there's a real difference between 60 FPS and even, like, 55 FPS. So yeah, use stuff like this to try and make that happen, depending on what hardware you're stuck with. But let's go off to very low, with that out of the way. Alright, here we go again. We're back in it. This time with very low, and our game is broken. You can see this is like the Team Fortress, like, early 2000s models. This is way lower poly than we've ever had before. We don't have any squares on stuff anymore, but I'm assuming we have to change something to get this to work, because it's not working right now. Okay, so after searching around the internet sometime... Okay, so after searching around on the internet for a little bit, first off, I found out apparently DXLevel 100 exists, so maybe give that a go next time you decide to play TF2. Instead of 95, do 100. Hopefully in editing, I remember to change every 95 to 100. But more importantly, apparently, without going down to 80 or 81 on the DX level, apparently very low bugs out a lot. I'll see if that ended up fixing it. I hope it does. Alright, so with DXLevel at 81, yeah, it's still bugging out for me, but you can see the textures are back to being squares and stuff, which is neat. So instead of testing this out for very long, I mean, I can look around. My weapons and stuff still load mostly the same. You can see our FPS did jump even higher. We're at like 350 instead of 300 looking out that way. And when we look back this way, instead of being at like 120, we're at 150 to 160. So if you can make very low work, I'm sure it's great. But for some reason, our HUD elements are still on the bottom part of our screen. Like, I can still see my ammo and all that down there. But you can see what I can see, where the loadout screen is still on most of the screen. I'm not really sure what to do about that. Also, my crosshair is not aligned with the rockets, and our audio sounds like shit. But this can be a necessary step sometimes if you really need the extra FPS. But from what I've heard, from what I've seen, low and very low give very similar performances most of the time for most people. And I do think a lot of the performance boost we're getting right now is specifically tied to being on DXLevel 81. Which I'll show off. Instead of looking at this for much longer, I'm going to actually go just swap to not very low. I'll swap back to the low config, but with DXL 81 enabled, so we can see the exact difference there. But yeah, you can see this is very low. Alright, so now I'm here with Mastercomfig low with DXLevel set to 81 in the launch options. It's worth noting I'm re-recording this part specifically. Like, the rest of the video was all recorded in one session, but I had to record this specifically because when I checked the recording, this part of the video went black for some reason. But yeah, that means I also have my other stuff set at the moment. Unfortunately, it means my like auto-exec ran once or twice. So let me change some of this stuff back. I think that's about right. Yeah. And then I need my unusual shotgun re-equips. Where is it? There we go. You can see our shotgun has no skin on it. Our other weapons are very low quality and all that, per the usual. But that's the sign that you're in DXLevel 81. You can see looking at this way, we easily get around 300 something FPS, just like we did with a very low. Except, unlike very low, this is fully functional, and it doesn't have broken parts of the HUD. You can see the water is a nice solid black as well, which is just great. But it also means when we try to look out of it, we get this weird murky look instead of the watery look from like before, and when we're particularly deep underneath, you just can't even see out of it, which is a big L. This is like a really big downside. It's definitely worth considering when going to low or not. This is how the water generally looks with config low. I think I had something messed up if it looked differently in other parts of the recording. You can see while fighting people, we're hitting like a very, 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 very solid 100 something FPS, and this is with like everyone in the enemy team on screen. We did have a random moment where it dropped to 60 there, which is kind of weird, but in general, our FPS are like exponentially higher with low in DX81. There's also no character outlines, which is something worth mentioning. You get no character outlines in TF2 if you're using DXLevel 81. And I forgot if I mentioned this in the recording or not, but the pyro has different looking flames, which I can go show off real quick, because why not? It's a pretty neat thing you can do. But yeah, you can see no skin on weapons that have skins, which is it's a downside for some people. I actually think this looks kind of sick. I kind of wish you could get this effect on a non-skinned weapon, because like, this looked really cool in my opinion. The models are the same low quality ones before. But if we go to like pyro real quick, you can see our flames look way different and way smaller. So like really competitive players generally use DX81 purely because of this, if nothing else. Like obviously your performance goes up, but a lot of them use it specifically because the flame particles are kind of nuts. Like significantly smaller and weirder looking. They're still pretty consistent though. But yeah. That's about all there is to say. It's like the lower quality models and all that. This is our FPS going way, way, way higher. And I also found out at this point in the recording, when I was messing with DXLevel 81, I found out DXLevel 100 exists, so I'm going to have a test for that at the end, right after this section. Just thought I'd mention that. I'm not sure if it's better than DX95 personally. I haven't really tested either of them enough to know, but it's definitely worth mentioning. But yeah, this is DXLevel 81. This is the performance boost you can kind of expect to see from that. Alright, here we are with DXLevel 100. I'm not exactly remembering what I'm comparing this to when it comes to 95 versus 100. But instead of having no eyes, it looks like we have like blended over the medic side. I mean, let me just look at my character. Let's see. I don't see through medic's face anymore. I mean, he has like sewn shut eyes instead, which is... I feel like a little bit less creepy, honestly. Oh, never mind, his eyes are gone again. I don't know what that was about. I couldn't see through his eyes for a little bit, but now I can. It's back, the voices. Anyway, yeah. FPS seems about the same as on 95. I feel like this is about what we had. You know, there's that. The textures and all that are obviously as low as ever. We have our skins back again. Looking as scuffed as ever. But yeah. That's kind of that. Our FPS are like a little bit up, but honestly, like with the higher DX levels, I feel like on medium presets, you're just better off like being on a medium low or something instead of actually being on low. I'm not really seeing big gains with DX100 here at least, but maybe my system just doesn't support it well. It's worth testing on all your systems or like I say all your systems, but your system. When I meant all your systems, I meant everybody should test on their system. You know, is DX81 good for you? Is 95 good for you? Is 100 good for you? See which one's best. Run one of the three. But yeah, you can see this is DX100 on low, which is probably one of the worst ways to test it. But it is what it is. Because this is built to probably run with the higher quality textures that you generally see in medium and stuff, which is what I'll normally be using. But yeah, that's been the Mastercomfig test. Let me know in the comments below which Mastercomfig preset you use, you know, what you recommend to other people, maybe some hardware specs to go with it. Like, I'm on a Legion Go. This is all just running off the Legion Go. Yeah, there's not really much more to say. Hopefully you guys enjoyed or found this useful. I hope a lot of you got better FPS with this. I'm not sure what I'll title this video, but that is kind of the end goal, is to inform people, you know, let them know they can get free, higher FPS with no real extra work or effort. And with that being said, I really do hope you guys enjoyed. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.